It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. I love this time of year, don't you? The bright autumn colours, the crisp mornings, really makes you feel alive. The only thing is the weather is really variable. I don't know how many of you check the weather today if you're driving, so I thought we'd just have a little experiment. Hi Siri, how are you?
All right.
Do I need an umbrella today?
Yes, we should see some rain for today.
Thank you.
You're most certainly welcome.
Have you ever stopped to wonder how they do that? It only seems like yesterday when I was growing up that my dad was the go-to weather expert. Every day he'd be tapping on the barometer and deciphering the complex weather charts in the newspaper. Then the BBC website came along and overtook my dad's duties. I remember thinking how cool it was that I could just put in a postcode and then get exact microclimate above my house. More recently, apps have come along and now I can get exact GPS details. I can get radar images and satellite. I don't even have to look out the window to see the cloud formation ahead of me. That simple example shows how technology has completely transformed our experience on how we get simple weather data. In the next 25 minutes or so, I'd like to share with you what we've been doing at Markerstudy to try and improve customer experience through data-led innovation. I'm hoping that you'll benefit from the lessons that we've learned, and then also we'll have a little bit of fun along the way. I've only got 4 things that I'd like to cover, so yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So we live in truly exciting times. Technology is totally transforming financial services, and it's hardly started. Digital advancements such as automated cars, the Internet of Things, blockchain, machine learning, complex algorithms are all going to have a massive impact on our market, our people, and introduce unprecedented levels of operational efficiency. We have become completely obsessed with connected devices. So just a quick show of hands, how many people in the room have got more than one mobile device on them today? Wowza, it's more than I thought. So that's about half of you. And how many of you in the room have got a smart device where you're measuring your steps or your sleep? Okay, almost the same half. So that is kind of indicative of normal behaviour. This fine athlete here, this isn't one of the Brownlee brothers. This is me completing an Ironman swim. So just to show you how obsessed I've become with technology, what do you think the first thing I done when I dragged myself out of the water? After being sick, yeah, the first thing that I done, yeah, is I checked my time. It was, to me, it was so important that I, to the second, recorded how long that swim took me. Another insane habit that I've developed is, this is a screenshot from my personal Strava account. So Strava is social networking for budding athletes or people that train. And I compete against complete strangers. So this table here is a hill outside my work. So every time I cycle home, I put myself through hell to try and come up the list. I'm quite disappointed because actually when I first done this, I was just outside the top 10 and now I've slipped to 27. I'm never going to meet these people, and yet I'm determined, kind of through gamification, to kind of get up there. The really bizarre behaviour is that I'm generating the data and Strava is selling it back to me. So because they can give me more insight than I can get from myself. So very strange behaviour. But we do live in a really, really mad world. So now each of us, if we wish, we can orchestrate our own life. We can now connect our Fitbit to our coffee machine. So in the morning, when the Fitbit detects you're waking up, you can have a coffee ready. If you've got OCD like me, you can wire your desk up at work, and if anyone tampers with it, you can get an alert to tell you that someone's been on your desk. And probably the one that nobody really wants is you can now connect your Facebook to your smart lights, and every time you get a like or a share, your light bulbs flash at home. So it's really, really crazy. But this craziness scales really quickly. So this is a street in Belgium with intelligent lights. So as the car goes along the road, the lights automatically turn themselves on. So this is really improving the environment and reducing costs. So things can scale really, really quick. So a bit of fun now. So back to the height of the 80s entertainment. So Jonathan's going to put a big prize up for anyone that gets all of these right. So it's a simple game of higher and lower. So if you think a card is going to be higher than the next one, I just need you to raise your hands. So connected devices are set to overtake the number of mobiles by 2018, which is quite an alarming statistic, so only 2 years away. So for the first card, in 2020, the total world's data will be over 40 zettabytes. So to break that down into sort of numbers you can get your head around, if that was put on individual DVDs and spread out to every single person on the planet, how many DVDs do you think everyone would get? So if you think you'd get more than 2018 DVDs, if you want to raise your hand. Remember, there's a massive prize up. Okay, so about half of you. So in 20, so it's 1,300 DVDs. So if you think about your own DVD collection or how many films that you download every year from Netflix, that's an enormous amount of data that's going to be available. They estimate there's going to be 7.5 billion people on the planet by 2020, so that's a lot of data. Okay, so on to the next one. Last year, how much do you think was invested in fintech, so new technology? So if you think it was more than 1,300, raise your hands. This is a bit of an easy one. I think this is trying to get you all awake in the morning, so you should all raise your hands. So last year there was $22 billion was spent on fintech companies. So there's a lot of people thinking that technology is going to be a game changer in the future. So last one now. So according to Gartner, in 2020, how many connected devices do you think there will be? So if you think it's more than 22 billion, raise your hands. Okay, so 21. So I'm not sure if anyone got that right. By the grains, I don't think so. So I think the car's safe, Joe. Yeah. So it kind of shows that there's there's a lot going on in technology at the moment that we should all be paying interest to. We do now live in a data economy, and the companies that really use that data will leverage. I think the app economy is here to stay. So that's why we think at Markerstudy we need to be pushing the boundaries here, because there's all this change going on in our own personal lives and it's affecting our products. So now I'm just going to touch on the second thing about what we're actually doing. So this image here is just a very high-level overview of one of our processes. Now, interestingly, I wonder how many of you are customers of your own business and how many of you actually appreciate the journeys that your customers go through. So this here is simple. The green lines are just the flow of data. So this is when, if you go on Money Supermarket or Go Compared and go and get an insurance quote, it kind of, from that start of that journey, through the whole process of getting the price back, and then actually at the end, if you have an accident and you need a claim. So as you can see, this is a highly simplified view, but there's lots of data moving around, and the bits in the middle that are turning around, that's where we're doing some quite complex calculations. So there's lots we can do to streamline this and improve the experience for our customers. I'm going to focus on just two areas. I'm going to focus firstly on when you get an insurance quote, which hopefully most of you would have experienced, and I'm also going to focus at, for those of you unfortunate enough that have needed to claim. So this guy here, well, let's call him Jeffrey. So Jeffrey goes online to get an insurance quote. We know everything about Jeffrey in real time. He only needs to put in about 5 bits of information, and we go off to about 12 different data providers. So we know everything about him. We know about where he lives, we know about his financial status, we know about his car. We even know what newspaper he's likely to read. So we're able to present Jeffrey the best product for him. The really crazy thing using this is that we, on average a day, we get between 20 and 25 million Jeffreys online getting insurance quotes from us. So in real time, we can process a huge amount of data. So by understanding what Jeffrey is looking for, we've seen a massive improvement in our customer retention rates. The thing is, like Jeffrey, we all like to exaggerate. They estimate 1 in 4 insurance policies has been manipulated in some way. So Jeffrey might say that he likes to park his car on the road, but he doesn't like the price. So then he says he puts it on the driveway because he's hoping for a better premium. Then he says he puts it in the garage and he's hoping for his best premium. In real time, we can actually see if we see Jeffrey manipulating his quote. They estimate that that manipulation is costing each one of us in the room £50 extra on our insurance premium. So since we've been doing this and using big data and machine learning, we've been able to reduce our fraud rate by about 60%. But the problem is you need a lot of clever people. There's a lot of data science around this, and they're in limited supply. So to accelerate our machine learning capabilities, we've implemented a product called Data Robot. So Data Robot literally applies data science without the need of data scientists. So now we can perform in real time complex algorithms to see patterns in data that previously would pass us by. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the bit when people claim. So just a quick show of hands, how many of you drive? So most of you come to a driving day, so I think obviously most of you drive. Now cast your mind back to the very first time you were behind the wheel of a car. How did you feel? For me, driving was a truly exhilarating experience. Everything seemed very complicated and it required all my powers of concentration. The problem with driving is I took it for granted within about 6 months. We all take it for granted, and that's the problem. To put the statistics into context, by the end of today's summit, about 75 people across Europe will lose their life due to a driving accident. About 15 to 20 of those will be young drivers. So at Markerstudy, we wanted a digital product that would actually positively change driver behaviour, especially those young drivers. So this camera here, this is the next generation of smart camera technology. So it combines traditional telematics with high-definition video. So each camera has got a mobile SIM in it, and it connects to our Internet of Things hub. So we've sourced these cameras directly from Korea and imported them exclusively. And working with the manufacturers, we've built our own Internet of Things hub. So in real time, we can see all of our vehicles, and we get live incident alerts, GPS, GPRS, and high-definition video. So using our experience in big data that we use on the quote side, we can actually calculate customer journeys, and we can warn people of potential accident black spots ahead. Using our machine learning capabilities, we're now also able to predict driving patterns. So where we've put these in large fleets of cars, we can actually identify if drivers need training needs. And the really cool thing is we can actually send a text message to the device which converts it to audio, so we can speak to the driver as he's going and remind him that he's actually being recorded. And this is having a huge impact on driver behaviour. Okay, so let's see the device in action. So this driver told his manager he'd just left the handbrake off. But as we can see earlier, he actually stopped for some lunch. It's actually this lunch that we now see hitting the dashboard. So did you know eating fried chicken is the 7th most dangerous food? And coffee is number 1.
Typical premium savings of €20,000 for just 65 vehicles. Increased retention rates. Reducing claims fraud. Improving customer experience. Changing driver behaviour. Saving lives.
So I'm really proud to say that actually this digital product, as Jonathan mentioned, we recently won Best Gartner Digital Product in Europe. The really amazing thing from my point of view is that in February this didn't exist. So the team have turned this around within 6 or 7 months, and now we're tracking over 1,000 vehicles in real time. So that moves me on nicely to the third thing that I wanted to talk about, is that how do we make the impossible possible? So most businesses, and Markerstudy is no different, have a massive change backlog. You know, the BAU kind of rules. If we've done nothing else but BAU, we've probably got 5 or 6 years worth of work. The IT department, which I run, and most IT departments will be the same, we're tasked with operational efficiency, keeping the lights on, and running things as cheaply as possible. So how can you get innovation when you've got these two kind of competing forces at play? So the first thing we try to do, and this picture sums it up really well, is create small autonomous teams that can move in a different direction. So this lane here, the left lane, that's the typical IT department where things all queue up behind each other and they move through very, very slowly. The lane in the middle actually is a small team on their own infrastructure, and they can move at their own pace. So by creating these small teams, you can actually disrupt and actually do quite a lot of things. So the team that was behind the video telematics product, there was only about 4 or 5 people. The next thing we look to do is to try and protect the downside. So a lot of our initiatives we will actually try out within the IT department first before we then apply it to the business. So an example of this will be some of our big data and machine learning. So we thought, wouldn't it be really cool if we could predict when staff would phone our help desk? So an example would be, if it's raining and you're running late for work, do you take your frustrations out on that poor service desk person? Or if there's a fluctuation in the stock market, do you then subconsciously take that out on the service desk? And we thought if we could ingest this data, we could start predicting when we were going to get calls. And we could see some quite interesting correlations, especially around internal SLAs and sales targets, that when people start falling behind, there was an increase in calls. So we were able to nurture the capability internally before we applied it onto a complex business problem. The next thing we try to do is set ourselves up for success. So it's really important, like a Mexican wave, you have people that very quickly will follow. So we look for strong advocacy very quickly and pick problems that we know that we're going to get sponsorship. And probably the best bit for me is that as soon as we've got our new capability, we blow up the old capability. Technical debt is slowing down so many organisations, and again, we look to move away from that as quickly as possible. So what's the future? So I see the future actually in 3 different areas: the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I think the good is that our lives will become more seamless. We'll be introduced with more automated personal assistants like Siri and Alexa, and it will become the norm. And as customers of our own companies, we will expect that kind of seamless transition of our products. There will also be new technologies come along, which actually solve some of the long-standing problems. So blockchain is the technology that underpins Bitcoin. And where it's been very clever is that it's actually completely taken a different view of the banking system and turned it on its head. So as an insurer, it's of great interest. We spend a lot of time trying to authenticate our customers, knowing who they are. And if we had a permanent record that was indisputable, this would be of a great advantage to us. It's also it's got excellent potential for storing and exchanging value, as has been shown with Bitcoin. And it's very good for ensuring value in things of like fine art and diamonds. So it's got immense potential. So there will be lots of blockchain technologies that come about. The bad is the impact on security. So this is from Gartner, and the red line is the ideal security that each of our businesses need to protect in this new connected world. The blue is the reality of where most of us are. And as we can see, as we become more and more connected and there's more and more data, the gap is actually going to broaden. So we're going to need to look at new technologies to fight cybercrime. So we've used something called Darktrace, but there's others out there which are kind of behavioural-based intelligence. So again, it learns what what normal network traffic, what normal user behaviour within your environment looks like. So it can tell you immediately if there's been any threat. But as this cyber threat continues, we'll have to look for more and more clever ways to tackle it. And that brings me on to the last one, the ugly. So not all roads will lead to the other side. And as a technology leader, it's going to get harder and harder to decide which technologies to back and which ones not to back. There will be many that will come along and promise the world. And in the fast-changed environment, it will be so difficult to know which ones will actually leverage your business. I could have changed this slide to something a bit more up to date. But, and also, I think we'll have to be prepared to go backwards before we go forwards. A lot of the IT problems that I see actually start off with by the IT department doing something. They're almost like self-generating. So again, it'll be very difficult to move with caution, but in a very fast and controlled way. So just to bring things to a close, so many commentators are saying that we're entering into the fourth industrial revolution. This is our time machine that we're working on. This will win Gartner Award next year. But just to kind of summarise, there's a massive customer expectations. Now, we all individually have expectations of our technology and the products that we use. We can, as business leaders, change customer behaviour. Through smart user technology, we can have a positive outcome. And it is possible to do the impossible. It only needs a few people that have the right backing and the right support to make great change. And we are entering this fourth revolution. If we don't act now, it potentially could be too late. So thank you for listening. If you were to take one thing away from today, when you next get in a car, driving is probably the most single dangerous thing that each of us will do in this room. So thanks for listening, and please drive carefully.